A very warm welcome to this episode 33 of the HuddleUK podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, every Saturday this podcast comes out. I'm the host, Philip Marsh. It's been an interesting few weeks. We've had some good games, some great guests on, and the NFL is... a few weeks ago, we were talking about how it was very hard to predict who the best teams were, it was very much in the middle. Myself and Jake were trying to work out the best way to rank teams. I think we're starting to find out after week 11, heading into week 12. I think we're starting to work out who the real contenders and who the real pretenders are. We're going to get into all of that today. As always, just a bit of a plug at the start. Please remember to go look at all the online content over at HuddleUK.com. Some wonderful stories. We've had, I think my favourite story this week, I think I shout out Sean, our Bengals writer, each week, who's done a whodunit Cluedo Poirot investigation of who killed the Bengals season this week, looking at the top six suspects of who are responsible for it, which is a really good read, and then a conclusion at the end, which I not to spoil it, but it's not just one person who's ruined the Bengals season. Anyway, moving on. As I said, week 11, plenty of thrills and spills, as there tends to be in the NFL. We're going to get onto some of the reaction to that, some of the look ahead to week 12. Jake is back joining me this week after a week hiatus. Jake, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I'm looking forward to the Bills-Texans game, which obviously at the time this is released, we will probably know how devastated I am. But I'm optimistic at the moment, so it's all good.
Yeah, we were recording this about some hour or so before the game on Thursday Night Football. A bit of a later recording for us, but we'll stay up and watch that game tonight. We'll see how that one goes. There's a few things that we've been talking about that we want to cover. I think it would be remiss of us not to talk about discipline across the league, because that feels like the general talking point and the general topic of the last week in the NFL, because there have been so many instances of different teams benching players, suspensions, fines, and all the rest of it. And I don't think we can start anywhere other than Jamar Chase. And I want to make it clear at the start, because every NFL broadcaster and media person in the world has had their say on this, and our say is inconsequential to a lot of them. But it's very clear Jamar Chase is an outstanding talent, and his talent is not relevant to this conversation. I think, unfortunately, some people feel that it does. I think a lot of people, if this was a Jahan Dotson, for example, people would be more keen to jump on the bandwagon of the bans and things like that. I think because it's Jamar Chase, people are more inclined to turn a blind eye. And for me, and I've put this on the HuddleUK's Twitter account, and I try to keep the social medias quite down the line and not too opinionated, because the point of this site is that everyone has their say. But spitting on someone for me is a disgusting act. And I don't care who you are, it's not okay. And a one-game ban for me is not enough. That's my personal opinion. And I'll let you have yours now in a sec. But what made it worse was that he doubled down afterwards in the locker room with 12 mics in front of him. He was asked, did you spit on Jalen Ramsey? And I think if you're just a decent human being, you own up to your mistakes. And to then double down and deny it is not only, poor behavior, it's also idiotic with the amount of cameras that are watching you. There's not a chance you're ever going to get away with that sort of stuff. I remember El Hadji Diouf doing this for Liverpool 20 years ago in the Premier League, when there was probably a third of the amount of cameras, and we all saw it. You're never going to get away with it. So to then lie about it in the press conference, I'm on kind of Jalen Ramsey's side, where he says, if he spit on me again, I'd punch him again. And I kind of am with him on that. Yeah, sorry, I've ranted enough. What's your take on it?
So I commented, didn't I, in our group chat to say that there is not enough instances that when there is unacceptable behaviour, the only thing that makes a league like this, the NFL, the Premier League, whoever it is, the only thing that makes them sit up and take notice is when there are ugly scenes as a result of what happens. So if you are spat on as a player, if you are racially abused as a player, you should not, in your workplace, have to take that on the chin and be the bigger person. Personally, for me, like, good for you if you can, but also I think it's completely acceptable that in the heat of the moment as well, Jalen Ramsey decided to resort to his fists. Admittedly, Dak Prescott didn't in the first game of the season when Jalen Carter decided to do it. Very different situation, first snap of the game, wasn't it? So not really quite so high intensity. But we do need, if you want the right resolution to these things, the league will only sit up and take notice to it if there are ugly scenes on the field. They do not want to see Jamar Chase getting pummeled by Jalen Ramsey week in, week out, and the like every single week. They don't want to see that. They will ban the players more severely for doing that if it always ends up in a scuffle. And so that's why you do actually, unfortunately, need players to stand up for themselves in these situations, because that's the only way that the league will ban it. If this is going to just go away quietly, the league will quite happily, like you say, fans want to see Jamar Chase out there, but unfortunately it sets a terrible precedent and example to the younger generations who would have seen that plastered over social media, seen that live in the game. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's disgusting. I'm perfectly fine with the reaction of players to that. I think that when you're faced with that sort of thing, and I think that a one game ban isn't enough. I think they set the precedent with Jalen Carter with a 1 game ban. They said at the time that when Jalen Carter got a 1 game ban, but actually the ejection was the ban, that now the NFL has set their stall out to say that spitting is a 1 game ban. Clearly that's not enough for a player like Jamar Chase to then say, actually, yeah, I'm happy to take that ban, because he's done it, and he hasn't learned from that, and it's a very recent incident. It's not like seasons have passed by. So yeah, I think that the NFL probably needs to reconsider what they consider that ban to be, and I think if that's probably 2 or 3 games, I think you probably would have seen the end of it. You make a very valid point as well about the fact that he didn't own it in the locker room with the mics in front of him. That shows a real lack of remorse, kind of quite a long time after the fact, and that's concerning if I'm Bengals management.
Yeah, and as you say, just to go back to that point, because I don't want the whole podcast to be talking about this, but I remember after the Chargers beat the Steelers a few weeks ago, Mike Tomlin was in his press conference and he was quite heated. He was very short with reporters, and I'm not comparing being short with reporters to spitting on someone, but he was very blunt and quite aggressive and combative with everyone who asked him anything, from reasonable questions to silly questions. And when he walked past the booth on Sunday Night Football afterwards, the guys and the host in the post-game show were saying we've just spoken to him as he watched himself back, and he went, I was probably a bit too much there. Yeah. And as you just made the point, after the fact, when people have got time to calm down, you look back, and we've all been there, we're all humans, we go, okay, I made a mistake there. But for him to just flat out deny it for me, I'm just like double the ban, triple the ban. If you're gonna just lie about it, if it's meant to be a 2 game ban, make it 6, because that just shows a lack of decency for me that I just don't like. And I think the best thing that could have happened is that the Steelers won, and that's not against the Bengals. I actually quite like the Bengals. I said many times in preseason that the Bengals were the team I was most looking forward to watching this season. It hasn't obviously transpired that way, but I don't have anything against the team, but I'm so glad the Steelers went on to win that game, because it would have felt such an injustice if they lost Jalen Ramsey and then lost the game. That would have felt really bad. So I'm pleased the Steelers ended up winning that game.
I have a quick question for you, Phil. So I did some research into the NFL disciplinary in terms of like the history of it, right? So I've got would you like to know, could you give me a guess as to what year the NFL first banned a player?
Not a clue.
Come on.
I wouldn't even be able to hazard a guess.
So we are approaching, in 2 weeks' time, we are actually hitting the 100-year anniversary of someone being banned from the NFL. So it was a chap by the name of...
I just really want to quickly say I'm so glad I didn't guess, because the first year that came to my head that I won't say out loud was not even in the same ballpark as 100 years ago. So yes, 100 years ago, sorry.
Excellent. So a chap called Arthur Foltz, right, who was playing for the Chicago Cardinals, now Arizona... Foltz, F-O-L-Z, Art Foltz. He was the quarterback fullback, running back, because they're all the same position back then, for the Chicago Cardinals before they became all of the other Cardinals along the way. Right? In 1925, he hired from his old college, he hired some college players to play for the opponents in the next week's game. He hired like something like 9 of them to play for the Milwaukee Badgers, and basically told them that the game was a practice game and not officially a league game, so they should take it easy. And the league found him guilty of match fixing as a result of that, and they banned him for life, only to then rescind it a year later. But by that point, he decided to go play rugby in Canada. So
That's excellent.
that is the first ever NFL ban. There was then a very high-profile one in the 1946 title game where the New York Giants had their quarterback banned for life as well, for actual definite match fixing. He was told to throw the game. That was like the first big one. That was a lifetime ban, not rescinded. So, but yeah, those two were the first two. I just found that brilliant, the idea of a player going out and hiring his opponent for next week and then just tricking them into being like it's a practice game. So
I just really wish his surname Fultz was spelt like to blame. Faults would have been amazing. But yeah, that's a great stat, and I absolutely love that. And I like that you said that the guy for the Giants was like accused of actual match fixing, like that Fultz wasn't actually match fixing.
Yeah, I guess like he's fixing it so that he can. I suppose there's two different things, isn't it? He's fixing it because his team needed to win in order to win the title away from the Pottsville Maroons. Couldn't tell you where any of these places are. Whereas obviously the Giants game, he was throwing the game so that actual people who had given him money in order to, so that they were going to win bets. So that was like more, that really is then the reason why the NFL has such a issue with sports gambling and sports betting through the rest of its history, and it really harks back to that 1946 game. But yeah, the 25 game, that really for me was that's just hilarious in its own right.
That's top tier knowledge, and you don't get this anywhere other than the HuddleUK podcast. I can tell you that for sure. Moving on from Chase, but just to stay on the similar topic, because there's been many of them, and you're a Bills fan. Keon Coleman comes into this conversation.
Yeah.
We've had CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Abdul Carter. There's been lots of these instances in the last week of players basically being not banned, but sacked out of drives. I don't want to go into each one individually, but is there a problem in the NFL? Is there a discipline issue right now where people and players are becoming famous and like celebrities? So on the flip side of this, Cam Scatterbo got a lot of like abuse on social media this week because he turned up on WWE. I can't remember which WWE. I'm not a huge wrestling fan. Sue me. But he got in a lot of trouble, obviously out for the season. And I don't have any issue with that. The guy can't play. He's stood on the sideline. He's of a ring and he's pushing someone. He's not. Sorry, spoiler. If you're a WWE fan, it's not real. And if you're injured and you can't play, you've still got to enjoy your life. People having to go at him for being in that, I just don't get. But CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens going out on the beer the day before a game, that I'm with. Like, and you like a beer, I like a beer. We've been for beers. But when you're a professional, I don't care if you're in Las Vegas or the middle of Montana. You should hold a certain level of professionalism, shouldn't you?
I think if you're getting paid millions of dollars, I think it's something that I probably wouldn't want to take many risks. I know there are certainties with their contracts, but I definitely think there's an element there that we mentioned it a few weeks ago on the Amari DiMercado fumble, where you're just like, look, you may not get this many chances. And I know all these players that have been benched for various reasons, they are going to get a second chance, most of them, because they are talented and the teams have invested in them. But I do think that there is an element of kind of invincibility and untouchability to it, that they then get a little bit too arrogant and they decide to play fast and loose with some of the team rules. But yeah, I think the Keon Coleman one in particular, I think is deeply concerning for the Bills. Obviously, the Brandon being the GM has been under a lot of flack for how he's built that wide receiver room. It's really not been good, other than the Stephon Diggs trade and finding Khalil Shakir kind of later in the draft. It's not been a successful. He's signed Curtis Samuel. It's not been good. So when they drafted Keon Coleman, I think their plan was to turn someone who was primarily a big slot receiver, to turn him into that wide receiver on the perimeter that could win one-on-one. He's got the physical types. He didn't typically play that way in college. He hasn't developed in the right way. A lot of the Bills kind of staff had frustrations with how serious he took his kind of conditioning and his physio work when he was trying to come back from injury last year, which was a setback for him. So there are maturity issues. Now that, again, comes down to the team that drafted him, that met him and sat him down and said, well, we think you're the player, the franchise wide receiver of the future. And they maybe got his character wrong. And as a result, it's now impacting his ability to develop into that player, and it's affecting the team as well. So I think it's really disappointing for me. I'm a big kind of character kind of individual. I think that I admire the teams that are not built on these kind of egotistical superstar players. I would very much rather a team that is just hard graft and committed to the team purpose. And for me, Keon is on the outside of that looking in, and I don't think he's that arsed about that, to be perfectly frank. And that's what concerns me. We saw the footage. Shannon Sharp on his podcast decided to chew him out with Chad Ochocinco. He was not impressed by that. And I think that if I'm being realistic, there's a very good chance that we see Keon Coleman on another team next season. Really, really good chance. And the Bills are going to lose a hell of a lot of draft stock in that, because they're not going to recoup anywhere near enough.
Yeah, I 100% agree with. As I said right at the top of the podcast, things have become a bit more clear, I think. And you nodded and agreed in the last few weeks. There are a few teams that have gone from we're in this pack of good teams to we are bona fide Super Bowl contenders. And looking at both conferences now, particularly for me, the NFC, there are two teams now in the NFC that if they're not the NFC conference game, I will be surprised. In the AFC, there's maybe three or four. That there are a few more that you could open it up to. And I don't want to go through all of them, but let's start with the NFC. Would you be in the same boat and opinion of me that the Eagles and the Rams have taken this step above the rest now?
Yeah, 100%. Even if you look at the fact that the Rams now have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks, who you probably would argue is going to be the other team. The Lions have also lost that tiebreak to the Eagles. So we're starting to see that realistically, can the Eagles and Rams drop enough games to fall beneath both of those teams? Probably not. So I think they're definitely the top two at this point. I think the Eagles' defense is starting to get terrifying again. They've added Jalen Phillips for a third-round pick. That is already paying off, which is frustrating as hell to watch Harry Roseman do it again. Nolan Smith is back from IR now, which is like a new signing for them. They've got a pass rush that's just so good. They're just stopping the opposition. They don't even need a high functioning offense. It really isn't the case. The only kind of dink on the Eagles at the moment is that their offensive line is a little bit injured. I think Lane Johnson's maybe going to IR for a little stint. So we'll see how that impacts their offense, if it gets so bad that the defense can't even help. But I mean, the Eagles are really starting to roll now. There's not much I can look past there. And like you say, the Rams as well. I know you were big on the Rams to start the season. So you feeling more confident, or as confident, or less confident?
Well, I'm going to use it as the segue because I sent you boys a screenshot of my preseason bet, which was that the Super Bowl would be the Broncos and the Rams. And with each passing week, I feel more and more confident at 100-1 that could come in. Now, that I also said last week on the podcast that I was confident that the Lions would beat the Eagles. So this is not we're perfect and we're always correct. I genuinely thought the Lions would win, but when you go 0 for 5 on fourth downs, you're not going to win a game. And it was frustrating because if the Lions had just kicked 3 field goals instead of going for the 4th downs, they'd have been well in that game, and it would have been a very, very different. Well, it could have been a very different result. But
Yeah.
as you said, the Eagles' defense looks great. The Rams have won a couple games now this year where they're just scrappy wins, and they weren't brilliant throughout against the Seahawks. But when your defense is picking off Darnold 4 times, it's something about Darnold playing the Rams later on in the season, because he did it in the
Yeah.
playoffs last year. And so, yeah, he must hate Gunnar SoFi. And I hate him because I lost my paid league.
I wonder whether
fantasy
you'd
league.
bring that up.
Yeah, well, I lost by fewer than 2 points. So if he'd have just thrown 3 interceptions instead of 4, I would have won. Anyway, that's not important. The AFC, again, to go back to what I was saying about my bet and my continual belief in the Broncos, they're now the number 1 seeds in the AFC. And you were spot on when we spoke 2 weeks ago and we did our mid-season divisional winners. You said the Patriots will win the AFC East, and I said the Bills. And it's not over, but it's not far off over now, because each week the Patriots keep winning games. And my favorite part of the Patriots is this narrative in the NFL that they have this easy schedule. And just to really double down on it, the game that Jamar Chase is suspended for is against the Patriots. So even when they play one of the best wide receivers in football, they don't have to play him. But as I said on that podcast, you can only beat what's in front of you, and they continue to do that at a alarmingly easy rate. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite as 2-horse racy as the Eagles Rams, in my opinion. As you say, the Seahawks are great. The Packers are on their day very good. The Lions are good. And the Bears, we have to mention the Bears. They're currently top of the NFC North. And I don't think they're as polished a team, but they're top of the division for a reason. But in the AFC, you have a few more teams that you would say are likely to upset, because the Colts are still 8-2. They've had their bye week and could very well draw level on 9-2 with the Pats and the Broncos. The Bills, I know you wouldn't want to say that as a Bills fan, but still are on their day very dangerous. I don't want to even mention the Chargers game against the Jaguars last week, and thank God they're on bye. But even though, and then you look at the teams that are currently the 9th and 10th seeds in the AFC. This is the difference, I think, between the top conferences. You look at the 9th and 10th seed in the NFC, and you're looking at the Panthers and the Cowboys. Now, both of those teams have quality, and they've got their moments. But the 9th and 10th seeds in the AFC are the Chiefs and the Ravens.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to play those two teams.
No.
There is not a single team in the AFC, whether you're the Broncos, the Patriots, the Colts, whoever, who would go, oh yeah, we'll take on the Chiefs or the Ravens in the postseason. Nobody would want that. Every single team in the NFC would be like, the Panthers. Yeah. Give me the Panthers.
We'll take those.
We'll take the Panthers. The Cowboys. Oh yeah, 100% we'll take those. And I think that's the difference between the two conferences right now, is that the teams who are on the up in the AFC are still out of the frame right now, which is the only reason I would be concerned if you are a Broncos or a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing on the Patriots, because Drake May's playing out of his mind. There's no getting away from that. Like I say, you can only really beat who's in front of you. Drake May's been sacked an awful lot. I can't really understand how he's been pressured as much as he has and as good as he has, because he was pressured a hell of a lot last year, and the whole reason why Jacoby Brissett played most of the season was because they were like, we'll sacrifice Jacoby Brissett. What's the O-line is terrible. The O-line is still terrible, and Drake May is just playing lights out stuff, which Jerome Mayo must be sat at home, or probably sat on a beach, isn't he, going, why didn't I just play Drake from the start if he can play like this? I'm sure it wouldn't have transpired like that. I think the thing for the Patriots, and I mentioned this kind of earlier, is that when you put them up against those other teams, particularly on the NFC side, but when you put them up against the likes of the Eagles, are they going to stand up and go toe-to-toe with them? I know they went toe-to-toe with the Bills. I don't think the Bills are being considered as that top team like they were in the off-season. So I think for the Patriots, it is interesting. We've seen other teams look unbelievably good. The Vikings last season looked unbelievably good. Then they went toe-to-toe with the real contender, and Sam Darnold turned into a pumpkin, and the Rams progressed. So I think that's what I'm interested to see with the Patriots, whether or not that happens in the regular season or the playoffs. I think I do have the Chargers, unfortunately, feel as a bit of a trending down team. I think that, unfortunately, that line just can't hold up at the moment whatsoever. It's painful, really. And we're not even the ones stood behind it.
Yeah, poor Justin, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I know I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but when you start Trevor Penning, and I wrote an article for HuddleUK saying sixth round pick, he was a first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
What have you got to lose? And there's been a lot of memes about the PFF grades of the Chargers offensive line when they were going through them on the primetime game against the Steelers. And Austin Deculus was 37 of 37 at left tackle. And so against the Jags, they were like, right, that's enough of Austin. Trevor, you're in. We traded for you, and he was replaced by the end of the third quarter for a
Mm-hmm.
guy who was PFF's lowest graded left tackle. If on your first game as a first round pick, you're being replaced mid game by the lowest graded player at the position, that screams volumes. And yeah, and it was a bad game for the Chargers all around that one. As I said, I don't want to go into it because it was horrific, but nobody played well. Justin Herbert, I love. There are many players on that team that I love,
Yeah.
but none of them played well. The only saving grace, or the only thing that I'm trying to tell myself as a Chargers fan, is that their bye week was in week 12. They had to play 4 weeks of preseason because they had the Hall of Fame game. Then
Mm-hmm.
they had 12 straight weeks, and that's a lot of football. It was the opposite for the Chargers last week. They had their bye week in week 5, and it tailed off at the end of the season. You could see
Yeah.
it when you play so
Way
many
too early.
when he
Yeah.
plays so many weeks in a row. They just scraped over the finish line last season, and then they got battered in the first round of the playoffs. This year, it's kind of the other way around. So what I'm trying to reframe as a Chargers fan is good. Do you know
Yeah.
what? They got it out of their system. Have a week. Have a week. Recover. Recuperate. But my concern is that, and I love Jim Harbaugh, but he does seem kind of oblivious to this. And maybe he's not oblivious, is he? He's a veteran
He's a very
coach,
good coach. Yeah.
very good coach. But he keeps getting asked in the media and to the press conferences, the offensive line's an issue. And he keeps
Mm-hmm.
saying, we got work on, but it'll get better. But everyone who's watched them knows that's a coach not throwing his players under the bus,
Yeah.
because they are historically bad, this offensive line. And that I'm not including Slater and Alt in this, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously.
I'm talking about who's currently starting. So yeah, as things stand, they're currently the 6th seed, the Chargers.
Well, on that topic, obviously Rashawn Slater not playing this season. See, this is a completely ridiculous thing to say, but genuinely, strap up his arm, roll him out there. Could it be any worse? Like, give him some painkillers, give him some injections. Could a one-armed Rashawn Slater not do a better job than, bearing in mind, there's only 32 teams in the league, than the 37th ranked tackle, or the 38th in Trevor Penning? Genuine question. Could he not do a Chris Wokes, arm in a sling, under the jumper, go out there and just do a job so that Justin Herbert can try and do an even better job? I'm just wondering.
Well, I love the cricket analogy on the eve of the Ashes when we record this. Unfortunately, it's a patella tendon for Rashawn Slater. So
Boo.
hobbling around on one leg, maybe even Trevor Penning could do a better job than a one-legged. But that being said, I'm not sure. I wouldn't put money on it. We've talked way too much, but we did want to talk about through our sort of predictions for our end of season awards, very
Yes.
early predictions for them. And I don't want to spend too long on them because we've got a rematch of our game that we played 2 weeks ago. But just sort of the key ones to try and tick off here.
Yeah.
Because the MVP is a very hot debate at the moment of who the current MVP is. I know who I would pick, but I'm going to let you take this floor on this one as the first one.
Interesting. Okay. Appreciate it. So I think what's really interesting is that MVP is a narrative-based award. It is not an award based on who the actual most valuable player is. It's also not the award for who the actual kind of best player is either. It's neither the most valuable nor the best player. If it was most valuable, it would always be a quarterback, and there'd be no consideration for a running back or a wide receiver or any of that. And then if it's to do with who the best player is, then it's never going to be some of the players that are truly transformative to their team, it's always going to be the Mahomes and the Allens and the Jacksons, which admittedly recently it has been. So I do struggle with that. But when it comes to predicting who it's going to be, I always like to look at how that narrative is going to play out in the media, because as we saw last year, and I wrote an article about it last year, about the fact that over the course of the season, there was a path to Josh Allen being the MVP, where at the time he definitely was not the favourite, but if he hit certain milestones, the way the media would carry it, he did it. And it wasn't even sure going into the award ceremony that he would get the votes that he did, but he did. And he did that through winning games in spectacular fashion in the spotlight of America. So you need the evening games, you need the late nights, the Monday nights, the Thursday night games. Now, my pick for who most valuable player would be is Drake May. Is that who your pick is?
No, it's not.
Excellent. Are you going to tell me who your pick is now, or are you going to leave me guessing?
I will tell you who my pick is, and then I'll let you argue why it's Drake May over my pick.
Okay.
My pick is Matthew Stafford.
Excellent. So I think it should be Matthew Stafford. I think it will be Matthew Stafford. I think that it should be Drake May on the pure basis that when you look at how far that Patriots team has come over the last 12 months, even less than that, they were not good. They probably underperformed against what the quality of the roster was last year, admittedly. Coaching had a lot to do with that and preparation. But Drake May has come in and look at what he's doing. I know he's got Stephon Diggs. Great. Okay, fine. But it's not the same Stephon Diggs that Josh Allen had, or even Minnesota Vikings had before that. So he is fundamentally doing more with less. And that is a good argument for it. When you look at how Josh Allen did it last year, it was a case of he is what was largely the reason for why the Bills were producing 30 points a game, was because there was no single superstar at wide receiver or running back or anything like that. So that really helped Josh Allen. I think that really helps Drake May as well. There are narratives behind why, ease of schedule, etc. But I do think that for me, that does really lend to it. Do I think he'll do it? No. Do I think that if he continues at the current trajectory that he deserves it? Yeah, I could see a pathway for it.
Yeah, and if it goes to Drake May, you won't find me saying he doesn't deserve it, because for all the arguments you just make, he, is would be a very worthy winner. For me, I just think Stafford has, if anything, played better against tougher opposition and is in a harder division. I know obviously the Bills are in the same one as the Patriots, but Stafford has been constantly playing in tough games in the NFC, and he always seems to come out off, with the exception of that random 49ers game on Thursday Night Football, which was a weird one. But nobody ever wins every game, or well, not for a long time has anyone won every single game. So yeah, just the eyeball test for me is why I would lean Stafford. But as I said, I wouldn't I wouldn't begrudge Drake May winning it, because of what you said about the media and how the awards work. I would guess that we're both going to be aligned on this next one, which is the Offensive Player of the Year, which is basically the best non-quarterback of the year. Which
effectively,
that's it's ridiculous that the MVP, if it's an offensive player, which it almost always is, isn't the Offensive Player of the Year, because that would surely transmit to the same thing, but it doesn't happen in the NFL. So I think this might be actually the most commonly voted one, so I don't think this is a hot take, but it's Jonathan Taylor, right?
He's definitely the odds-on favourite. I think that the only thing that counts against Taylor is what Jackson Smith-Njigba is doing. And
we're going back to the Jackson.
We're not going back. We're not going back to the JSN network, because that's what this is going to end up getting called. I think. But it is true. I mean, he is a historic pace as a wide receiver. So I think he's the only other player that would be in with a shout. I think my concern is that whereas the Colts, as the winter months set in, they're going to continue to run the ball. They're not going to suddenly pivot to asking Daniel Jones to win more games. They know where their bread is buttered with him. Whereas when you look at the other way round, Seattle is going to get a lot more bad weather. They've got that outdoor stadium. Is JSN going to continue at the current rate that he is? Is Darnold going to have a couple more stinkers? He's got to play the Rams once more, so probably at least once. So for me, the only reason why it's not completely settled by now is that JSN is on a tear because he's the only other player that can really challenge Taylor. But I mean, by the end of the season, I think this will be kind of a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and for me, it's the reason it's an easy one for me is because the only player at his current pace that would out touchdown him was LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah.
He's the only player who is above Jonathan Taylor's current trajectory. So everyone last year was talking about Saquon Barkley's generational season,
Yeah.
and Jonathan Taylor is eclipsing that. So, yeah, and Barkley was in the MVP conversation as much as Jonathan Taylor is. So if he doesn't win MVP, I think if he meets the Damian Tomlinson's record, he has to be in that conversation with Stafford and May and anyone else who you want to throw in the MVP conversation. I think he has to be because LT won it in that year.
Is
But
there is there any chance? Do you think we're heading into week 12 now? Is there any chance that one of the big three could turn it around in such a way that they would put themselves in the MVP conversation? So the big three being Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson. Is it done for them?
I think the only one who would have, personally, the only one who would be able to would be Josh Allen,
Okay.
because I think so much stock goes into what your end of season record is. And
Yeah.
even if the Chiefs and the Ravens, who I think are both 5-5, win every game from here on in, they're not going to have this record above 11 wins. And I think if Josh Allen wins every game from now and beats Drake May in that reverse game,
Yeah.
he's the only one who could put himself in that mix. And that's not to say, obviously, it would be crazy to say that Lamar or Mahomes are bad players, obviously. But in terms of the MVP voting this year, I don't think either of them could sneak in it personally. Personally, that's where I land.
Okay.
Defensive player of the year, I think, is more up in the air. I know who the
Okay.
odds-on favorite, or I haven't seen the odds, but I know who the very, very likely favorite will be. I've got someone different. And then I think there's
Well,
another player who we both agree on who should be talked about highly in this category. I guess Miles Garrett is the favourite for this award.
yes, he is the odds-on favorite. I did take a look, but yeah, I'll just bring up the odds again now. But I believe he's the odds-on favorite still.
That wouldn't surprise me. And I think Michael
10 sacks in
Parsons,
3 games, is it?
he's a level which is insane. Yeah, because he got 5, 4. Yeah, I think it was one in between. So yeah,
Yeah.
10 in 3 is nuts. Micah Parsons will be in this conversation without doubt. My pick would be Nick Benito, who is definitely going to be in there somewhere. But our joint play, I don't know where, I don't even know if he would come in the odds here, but I know it's a play that we both like and who you had a pre-season bet on to win this award.
Yes. Okay.
It is Will Anderson Jr. for the Houston Texans, who's just a wrecking ball. And I said to you on message the other day, I think he's the guy who in years will be talked about the way people talk about Myles Garrett. I love him. There are very few parts of this guy's game that anyone can critique. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's had quite the season this year to win this award.
It's disappointing. I think he's the one, the one player I was sort of right on that he was going to have an ascending season. Not a hot take, admittedly. Being in that Houston defense under D'Amico Ryans is very advantageous for him. You know, he's opposite Daniil Hunter on the other side, which is also very advantageous for him. He's got Derek Stingley, who just is sticking to number one wide receivers, which will massively help quarterbacks stay in the pocket, again, which will help Will Anderson. So it's really complementary defense for them, and that massively helps him. He's currently 14-1, so he's not massively far away. Same odds as Aiden Hutchinson, who's also having a really good season off the back of that broken leg. But yeah, Myles Garrett is, I think we've missed an opportunity with Myles Garrett. He's obviously, it's going to be difficult for him to be traded now. I think, like, what would have happened if he'd moved? And I know people were like, "Oh, it'll never happen." Like, do you need an owner like Jerry Jones to make it happen? Because Michael Parsons got dealt, so it was possible. It really was. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, how much would you give up for him? Like, not necessarily as a Chargers fan, but
Can he
how
play
much is
left
he
tackle?
worth?
If he can play left tackle, I'll give up everything. But yeah, well, if Michael Parsons is worth 2 firsts, I think Myles Garrett is a couple of years older, but he's at least worth a first round pick, and that's a bare minimum in the
Yeah.
market. So, yeah, you mentioned Daniil Hunter is a name I didn't mention, but obviously, as you said, opposite Will Anderson Jr. Another player whose name I just want to shout out in this category is Leonard Williams for the Seattle
Yeah.
Seahawks, because I think a lot of people thought the Seahawks defense would be okay this year, and Leonard Williams has continued to be an absolute game changer. Two pick sixes or two. They both was it a fumble recovery and a pick six or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The would you like to know something hilarious as well? That you can currently bet it's 50-1 for Byron Young to win Defensive Player of the Year. They have in brackets put Byron Young Rams, just in case you are under any false pretense that it's the other Byron Young at 50-1. So just to avoid any confusion, I'm not even sure what roster that guy's on now. But I find that's brilliant specificity.
two more we'll go through quickly before we get onto our game at the end. Rookie of the Year, next one. This one for me is an easy choice. There've been a few good rookies, but one has stood out and above the rest. I'll let you go first on this one.
No, because okay, this is so offensive rookie of the year, right? Or
Yes.
defensive?
Well, I was going for all rookies, but it's
all
offensive.
rookies.
It's offensive player for me.
So for me, I know who you're going to say, wide receiver. I won't spoil it, but he's currently second in the Vegas odds. I think there is a route to Jackson Dart still being offensive rookie of the year, and I think that will happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree that there's a route to that, but it's a Emeka Egbuka right now.
It is.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's him. He's been unbelievable for a rookie wide receiver. Sometimes you can see that position really start quite slowly. Marvin Harrison, great example of that. Probably something that's gone under the radar as well is how good a start his career Tet McMillan has had. Just completely overshadowed by Emeka Egbuka, but has been everything the Carolina Panthers actually needed and wanted for Bryce Young's continuing development. And just they really needed that. Xavier Legette hasn't been the guy, so he's been really good, but it's just Emeka Egbuka has just been lights out since pretty much game one.
Yeah, from the start. His stats this year: 45 catches, 770 yards, 6 touchdowns. Unbelievable rookie season. And Tet McMillan, as you say, has been great. I think the difference between the two, obviously, is the draft capital, both first-round picks. But Egbuka went 19th. And you mentioned Legette. While he's had his shock horror moments, he did catch a great touchdown against the Falcons last week. And that was sort of a game, I think that was the proof of concept game where Bryce Young broke the franchise record for the number of passing yards. Also, it's a name, I completely forgot to mention this earlier, but you mentioned the name earlier, Jacoby Brissett. I have to mention him because he broke the NFL record for completed passes in a game, a regular season game, it has to be said. He tied Ben Roethlisberger's record for regular and postseason. But who saw that coming in? A blowout loss. If you got Michael Wilson in fantasy, you were absolutely laughing on Sunday in that game. So hats off to Jacoby Brissett. That's not a player, I think if 20 years down the line you went, which NFL quarterback holds the record for the most completions in a game? Don't think he's a name that would come to mind. So a lot of time for that. That one caught me off guard. Final award, which is a very contentious one because it's contentious in what does it mean? And that's the comeback player of the year, because come back from what? Come back from being bad, come back from injury, come back from whatever Damar Hamlin was, which was the
death.
Big debate. Death.
Come back from death.
Come back from death, which was the big debate obviously we've had in our friendship group. Again, I don't know on the odds here. I guess JJ McCarthy would have been an early season pick for this.
Would you like to tell me? I can tell you what JJ McCarthy's odds are right now. Would you like to have a guess?
He can't be good now, surely.
Well,
is he good now?
Depends on what you consider good for odds, I suppose.
Well, he can't be the favourite, surely.
If you want to waste your money, it's good.
Okay.
He is 200-1 as comeback player of the year. I know that he was I think he was 14-1 at the start of the season. I think because I included him in my failed bet. It's not yet failed; it will fail.
Will fail.
CMC, I think, is the leader in the clubhouse on that one. He's just quietly gone about carrying the 49ers with a backup quarterback and no wide receivers for most of the season. He has just been, I think he's on for 1,000 receiving yards
Probably.
at running back, or it's close in terms of trajectory. So he's close to his Carolina Panthers kind of record from a couple of years ago. Other favourites, Daniel Jones. Where do we stand on the Daniel Jones comeback?
Well, that was the name I was going to mention. I was going to mention Daniel Jones and Aiden Hutchinson. They were the names that I was going to throw out there.
Yeah,
because
Jones is technically coming back from a neck injury, but is
this
what people are judging?
Yeah, that's the issue with this award, isn't it? This is my issue with this award: is what are you coming back from? Daniel Jones would, if the award was called Most Improved, then it's Daniel Jones's award, because CMC hasn't improved. He's just come back from a really bad injury.
Yeah.
In the same way that Aiden Hutchinson has. We all knew how good he was. Daniel Jones is the most improved player in the NFL without a shadow of a doubt. But that's not what this award is, which is why I don't like this award, frankly. I don't like this award. Well, it'll probably go to CMC because, as you say, he's having a lights out season.
Yeah.
But I would give it to Daniel Jones just because I think that's what the premise of the award should be.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett is on this list. Was Jacoby Brissett injured last season? Could you come back from obscurity? Like, is that enough for the award? Just to be like, we don't know where you were last season, other than behind that awful Patriots offensive line. So that's enough. Rashee Rice is on this list. I know he's come back from knee injury, but that's not the only thing he's coming back from, is it, Rashee? So I think there's a couple of dubious ones on here. I do like the Aiden Hutchinson one. I think he's been very good considering the leg break he had. Chris Olave is on here. He's also been very good.
Very good, yeah.
I actually really like that. 125-1 for Chris Olave. I mean,
Chris Olave has been one of my sneaky dark horses in fantasy football this year, and has been excellent. I don't know what his rank would be. I'm going to click his name now. Wide receiver 12 in fantasy football this year, and nobody's talking about him. He's a very, very, very good player. I like, if he can stay upright and, conscious.
Aware.
Yeah, then he's excellent. Before we get on to our game, because you mentioned Jacoby Brissett, and I've just looked it up. Can you give me, in the last 6 years, he's played for 6 different teams?
Oh, okay.
Can you name the 6?
Let's do this. Okay. This is including the Cardinals, I presume.
So that's 1.
Patriots.
Yep.
Dolphins.
Yep.
Colts.
Yep. So I'll help you in that it was Colts 2020, Dolphins 2021, then you're missing 22, 23, then Patriots 24, Cardinals 25. I will hold my hands up. One of them I would have got because he played 16 games that year in 2022. But the 2023 team, I forgot he even went there.
Oh, good grief. Not there.
One team won't come as a surprise because they seem to have a different quarterback starting each week.
Browns.
The Browns. It's where he played 16 games, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other team, as I said, I genuinely forgot he was ever at this team. Played 3 games in 2023. Only completed 18 passes.
Oh, blimey.
Although looking at it, he had his highest completion percentage while he was there and a QB rating of 146. So his best ever rating was in the 3 games he played for this team. Oh no, QBR was 95. But the rating points was significantly higher than anywhere he's ever been.
Yeah, I don't know. Put me on my misery.
The Commanders. I have no recollection of that. I honestly can't remember that. So, apparently he was lights out in his 3 games for the Commanders in 2023.
So that was 2023. So that was the season of... That was before Jade. Yeah, it was before Jaden Daniels. So who would have been the actual starter?
It's not Mariota, obviously.
No.
Surely he didn't start that year.
You know what? It's not Carson Wentz, is it?
Or was it Taylor Heineke?
Oh, it was Sam Howell.
Sam Howell.
It was the season of Sam Howell.
Yes, because midway through the season, he had the most yards of any quarterback, but he also had the most sacks because he basically just every snap was just launching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam Howell.
65 sacks.
Before we go, we have a little game to play. A few weeks ago, we tried to name 7 players in 15 words, and what we realized in that episode is that we're not very good at this game. So what we're going to try and do this week is we're going to up the number to 21, which would be 3 per player. And if we get it right with each week, we will lower that number down until we see if we can get to 15. We had a couple practice runs, I admit, off camera. And I think somehow I've left the hardest list for this live version. So, Jake, good luck. You're the one guessing this week. I'm the one giving the descriptions. So if we get 3 per name, I feel like we're in good shape.
Yeah, sure.
So let's start. I'm going to go in the order that it was sent to us, and I'm going to say Giants running solo.
Giants running solo. Well, I'm assuming it's a running back. So, Tyrone Tracy?
It's a bad start.
God, not
it's
again.
It's a bad start. I tried to use the word solo as a sort of creativity on the name. That might be on me.
Okay.
I'll come back to that one then, as we've already used the 3. Let's go with Eagles lineman IR.
Lane Johnson.
There we go. We're good.
Okay,
We're good. We got that one. Tick that one off. I'm going to go for just 2 words here and say Commanders tight.
Zach Ertz.
Okay, nice. We've got a spare one.
We didn't hit me with Ben Sinnott there because that would have
I
been hard.
wasn't going to hit you with Ben Sinnott, no, or is it Bates? I think is the other one there.
Yeah.
Let's try another one for 2. I'm going to say Buccaneers and then Hoff.
Buccaneers Hoff. What is it, like David Hasselhoff?
I can't say, surely, because that would be more words.
Levante David?
Is correct.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
And then the next one I'm going to give you is Buccaneers Hoff.
There's more than one David on the Buccaneers?
This is a different Hoff.
What?
I'm not going to say more than that, but I imagine Hoff. No, I'm not going to say any more.
There's more than one Hoff in the world.
There's more than one reason to use the word Hoff.
Now you've done me. Just trying to think of Buccaneers players.
But if in doubt, we've got an extra word if you want to just guess one.
Okay, let's guess a Buccaneer. There might be a Hoff. Chris Godwin.
No, not Chris Godwin. But I will say receiver as the 3rd word.
Well, surely it's not Emeka Egbuka because that would be too much of a coincidence given how much we've talked about him already. Mike Evans?
Yes, is correct. The Hoff that I was going for here is what these 2 will be, that Mike Evans will be.
Oh, I see. Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame,
Hoff.
yeah.
Yeah, you see, the Hoff has done a number on me there. But
the Hoff, but it worked for Levante David, which was the first Hoff I was going for. And then I thought, just for fun, I will double up on the Hoff.
You'll double up on the Hoff.
But
okay.
Single F Hoff on the second one. But we're still in the running.
Okay.
Let's go Broncos MVP.
Broncos MVP. These are all current players.
Current players, yeah.
Broncos MVP. This is Nick Bonito.
No.
Oh, damn it.
Then the next word I use, because I get 3, is bowl.
Bowl?
Yes. BOWL.
Von Miller?
Von Miller is correct. Yes.
See, I was thinking current Broncos, and then I was like, oh, we're getting fruity with this.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So
that's bad.
Next one is, I think at time of recording, this is correct. Bengals quarterback.
Unless I've missed something, it's still Joe Flacco.
It is Joe Flacco. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was like, he's not like fallen apart accidentally. Maybe he's been spat on, particularly hard by Jamar, but yeah.
Which means we are still within our 21 word quota to go back to the last one, which was Giants running solo. And you said Tyrone Tracy. So I will use one more word and just say other.
So the other running back, so low. Devin Singletary.
Singletary, yes, was the
Very
solo
good.
that I was going for. Yeah, Devin Singletary.
Very good.
But hey, we did it in the 21 words. So next time we will lower that. I don't know how many words we did in, but it was less than 21. So next time we will lower it to 20, and I will have to guess next time round. I think on the whole, good. The Hoffs threw you off, but we got there. So very positive overall. Very positive. I think.
Is it progress? I don't know. We'll see.
It might be a sideways step.
Yeah.
But
we're holding for.
But we'll look for and we'll tick it. Thank you very much for everyone for listening this week. I hope you've were infuriated by myself and Jake giving those clues and guesses. All the answers would have been up on the screen. Tell us how you would have done it better, please, because we could all do with some tips for next time. Jake has been our guest as always. I've been the host, Philip Marsh. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy all of the action this weekend. Hopefully by the time we're doing the next recording, Jake, the Bills will have beaten the Texans, but you'll never know. You'll never know at this point of recording. We'll catch you on episode 34 of the HuddleUK podcast. Until then, thank you very much for listening.